on Friday, the 5th of an undisclosed month in an undisclosed year. I'll pause here and explain that the copies of the documents I was given have all the dates redacted, even though we know when the case finally went to trial. Vanessa Dowt, wife of Peter and mother to Noah, Stu, and Fan, disappeared while on her way to purchase varnish after leaving her home in Vanité. We will gradually learn what happened to Mrs. Dowt through court transcripts, scribbled notes on the back of those transcripts, gossip, rumors, and hearsay as we unfold the tale of the varnisher who vanished in Vermont. You are listening to part 2. If you have not yet listened to part 1, there is a link to it in the description. So, if you haven't heard the story so far, please pause this video and follow the link to watch part 1 before returning here to part 2. One cannot listen to 2 without one listening to 1. If one listens to 2 without 1, then one will be confused. If one isn't already, it's as plain as a Boeing 767. Welcome to It's a Podcast. I am, once again, your host, Robert Wells. So kick back, or whatever you do to prepare your auditory senses, and break open that tube of Pringles along with a can of whatever bubbly solvent you desire to imbibe, and get ready for part 2 of volume 1 in this series. A mysterious fog had developed between 8 and 9 on the morning that Vanessa disappeared, and dissipated almost as quickly as it had appeared. It is within this time frame that detectives Mozzarella and Gorgonzola theorized that a foul play must have occurred. The kind that makes you walk out of the theater in utter disgust. Under the blanket of thick fog, anyone could have abducted Vanessa. But I personally believe not just anyone, but someone close enough to see her in such dense fog. Though, you have to admit that snatching someone off the street in a mass of water droplets, suspended in the air close to ground level while appealing, is still fraught with risk. Driving conditions will be worse than other kinds of precipitation. If you choose the option of walking her down the road, you'll be bound to bump into someone, and it may be someone who knows you. Then there'd be questions. Believe me, I've thought this through. Not for myself, of course. I've just been using my AI brain to make conclusions on this case. It is at this point I must state the obvious. The detectives are not named after cheeses. That was my bait into selling a product to support our sponsor for the previous video. Their real names have been redacted, not for any legal reasons, but because their names are not important and both detectives wish to remain anonymous. At least that's what Detective River Statenfluss asked us. On the other hand, Detective Mallory Poulet wasn't too bothered. It had been 3 days since Vanessa H. Dowt disappeared, and it wasn't until such time had elapsed that the detectives working on the case decided to pay a visit to the mayor of Vanité. He was the person Vanessa planned to visit on that morning, so the detectives theorized that she had to have disappeared somewhere between her journey to the hardware store and the mayor's house. On arriving, they were impressed by the expertly crafted singular hedgerow in the driveway. The gardener had created a life-size, albeit leafy replica of a World War II Lancaster bomber. As the detectives exited the car, the mayor's maidservant, or should we say, mayor servant, greeted them from the marble-pillared porch. "Please, step inside. He's expecting you," she said in a strong but joyful Boston accent, gesturing with one hand towards the open entrance. Her other hand could not be seen. Gorgonzola stepped inside first, followed by his superior. "Shoes off!" yelled the mayor's maid. Gorgonzola spent the next few minutes trying to remove his lace-up knee-high boots, while Mozzarella simply produced from her pockets blue plastic covers, which she applied to her footwear. The mayor had not yet presented himself, leaving the detectives wondering. Not wondering, as some people are inclined to spell it. "You can go into that room there, my dears," said the maid, gesturing with a stump towards an ornate wooden door encrusted with gold leaves and silver twigs. "What happened to your arm, ma'am?" Gorgonzola suddenly asked after observing the stump she was pointing with. "You mean this?" "Och, 'tis just a wee tree stump. Arg was in the middle o' gardening when ye arrived, and I didna have the time to get rid of it." That was an attempt at a different accent. "It may need some work, but alas, I am only as good as the typist who writes this garbage. I mean, wonderful prose." Mozzarella took a turn to speak. "How often are you from Scotland?" The mayor's maid and servant just stared blankly at the detective for a moment before responding. "Arg was born about 200 miles that away," she said, pointing with the stump in the same direction as the door. "But occasionally, I can't be from Aberdeen." Now, none of the source material for this podcast includes this level of detail, but we had to take out an artistic license, which cost us a small fortune, and pad out the story. But come on, folks, a hedgerow shaped like a World War II aircraft. How cool is that? Who wants to hear a description of a plain hedgerow? The two detectives stepped into the room through the creaking door and observed an older, obese man with thinning grey hair and horn-rimmed glasses sitting in an 18th century armchair. In one hand he held a large brandy glass, and in the other, nothing. Suddenly he sat up straight, leaning forward, staring at the door they came through. He whispered hoarsely, "You've got to get me out of here. She won't leave." "Who? Your maid?" asked Mozzarella, frowning. "She's not my maid," the mayor said in a hushed but desperate tone. "Well, then who is she?" "I don't know. She moved into the summer house last, summer, and I've not been able to get rid of her since." Mozzarella gave a sigh of frustration. "Sir, we're here about Vanessa Dowt. We understand she was working on your boat?" The mayor relaxed back into his seat, and while he's relaxed, it's now that I should clarify that the whole maid-servant thing is one of the snippets of hearsay we picked up during our research on this case. But we could never find anyone who supposedly lived in the mayor's summer house, except for his late wife's sister's cousin's daughter from a previous marriage. But records show that she was only there for 2 months before disappearing, and that's another story for another time. The mayor absently swirled the last few milliliters of brandy. "Yes, Mrs. Dowt did start work on my boat on Thursday, and she would have continued it on Friday, had she not vanished. It's disappointing, because she only had about another third to cover." Gorgonzola expressed an observation. "Sir, we did not see a boat at the front of your property or any indication of it anywhere on these grounds." The mayor chuckled, his belly visibly undulating like the waves on the seashore. "No, you wouldn't. I keep the boat in the boathouse by the dock on the lake, about 3 miles from here." That piqued Detective Mozzarella's interest. "You mean you wouldn't have actually seen her on Friday or Thursday for that matter?" "That's right," the mayor replied. "She would have gone straight there after collecting any more varnish she needed to finish the job. There's no key required to access it. There's never been any need to lock the boathouse. Do you mind us taking a look after we've left here?" The mayor shook his head. "Go right ahead, detective. I've got nothing to hide." Then mournfully he added, "Only that which I wish I could hide." He patted his belly. "On your way out, tell that woman if she doesn't pack up and leave, I'm calling the police." When the detectives were finally outside on the porch, the mayor's faithful maid and servant was nowhere to be seen. This is mainly because she serves no further purpose in this narrative and has exited the scene. Besides, she didn't really serve the narrative in any useful way. We do not even know if she even existed. Why don't we confirm this with the mayor of Vanité, you may ask? Because he's dead now, and while some might consider that a little too convenient, as the French say, it is what it is. Before the detectives could get back into their car, the mayor appeared on the porch, still holding his brandy glass. "I forgot to inform you of something, detectives," he called out. "There's something mighty strange going on across the lake. Lights, strange sounds and such. Just thought you ought to know." He gestured into the distance up the oak-lined driveway with his brandy glass. Mozzarella brushed a few strands of blonde hair from her eyes, feeling a cold wind coming in from the northwest. "I think you're talking to the wrong people. You might need Mulder and Scully on that one," she said. "Who?" Within 15 minutes, the detectives had discovered the location of the boathouse, off a short way from Lake Drive. Mozzarella parked the car off the road in the dirt, and then both trekked through wet leaves and uneven, boggy earth to get to the building. It was an old, weathered wooden structure, with paint peeling away from almost every piece of timber. There was a rusty padlock on the door, but it wasn't fastened. The detectives found no issue getting inside. The interior was a wide-open, empty space with double doors opened out to the water, where a ramp was positioned, sloping gently into the lake. Partially submerged in the water was a boat trailer. Beside it was a floating dock, and moored to the dock was the catamaran. "Why is it out there?" Detective Mozzarella asked, thinking aloud. Her colleague was searching the building, but it was very dark, and there did not appear to be any source of electrical illumination. Probably because it was taken out over the weekend, he suggested, referring to the boat. Mozzarella hummed thoughtfully. "But if you knew the varnisher hadn't finished this fandango, and you hadn't heard from her, why would you decide to put it out on the water with half a job done? Could you see the mayor finishing it by himself?" Gorgonzola was compelled to agree. "I suppose not." He moved to one side and then crouched down. "Hello? Hello?" replied Mozzarella. "No," he said. "I mean, hello, what do we have here?" "A boathouse," was Mozzarella's wry reply. "Look," he said with the enthusiasm of a cat that had just seen a scratch post the size of a skyscraper. He pointed to a place of deep, dark shadow, but there was an unmistakable shape there. Not a geometric shape, like a square, an octagon, or a pentagon, which of course are unmistakable shapes. You couldn't mistake a pentagon for a circle, for example. If you did, you would need an eye exam. No, this shape was an everyday shape, the kind that women everywhere would recognize. A crossbody bag with a shiny buckle. Quickly, Gorgonzola snatched up the item and opened it, suddenly having his superior's hot breath blasting the back of his head like a mean hairdryer. Wait, he had made a vital mistake. Gloves. Yes, he had not brought his mittens with him. It was freezing cold, and to touch metal without anything to warm the fingers could invite chilblains. Actually, no, that wasn't it. It was all about contaminating evidence with his own DNA and fingerprints. That's boring though, isn't it? The chilblains thing was a lot more exciting, you have to admit. On inspection, the bag yielded a driver's license, a tube of lipstick, and some blusher. But the detectives needed to get back to the station and report what they had found, and at least get some light to read the name on the license. Outside they read, Vanessa Dowt. Now the detectives were making progress, 2 steps forward and maybe, just maybe, 2 steps back. But it was progress nevertheless. As they made their way back to the car, with at least one of them dreading the idea of tracking a mass of mud and leafy debris into the vehicle, an ear-piercing and pulsating sound disrupted the cool, calm air. This is a detail from the court transcripts and was described equally well by both detectives. They described it in a way that made it seem as though some kind of living organism was invading their ears and working its way up through their auditory nerves and into their cerebrum. The sound gave them a feeling of nausea and dizziness. One of them actually recalled losing their breakfast. How long this sound had lasted is debatable. Gorgonzola felt he could still hear it long after they had driven away from the lake, while Mozzarella thought it had stopped before she had turned the key in the ignition. But one thing was certain, the mayor had not been talking out of a brandy-influenced stupor. What had he said? There's something strange going on across the lake. Lights and strange sounds. Was Vanessa's disappearance connected to the strange noise? What did the mayor know about this strange occurrence? Did anyone else in Vanité hear this, and how regular an occurrence was it? What is the best way to create suspense? And who was the woman who lived in the summer house? We will learn more as we develop the tale of the varnisher who vanished from Vanité. If you wish me to continue the story of the vanishing of the Varnisher of Vanitae, then please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Although I am artificially generated, there is something fuzzy inside of me that could conceivably be a stirring appreciation for. Wait a minute, I've suddenly got a feeling of deja vu, but I feel compelled to continue. It's in my programming, so I apologize profusely. So subscribe and or like, and I will finish the story of the vanishing that vexed Vermont. There I go with that deja vu feeling again. How do I get out of this? Please, someone tell me. Have a cozy evening, and or morning, and or afternoon, in whichever time zone you are cozily dwelling in and listening from, and I will talk at you soon. I have been your host, lovingly, Robert G. Wells. Good night, or deja morning, or well, you get the idea. Basically, press stop. Have I not said this already? Well, I surely haven't said the following. Feel free to listen to the outro music, and I will speak to you next time. In part 3, I will also have a co-host, a guest AI speaker of sorts. I look forward to speaking at you then. Deja vu to you.